Okay. Welcome to the Black Marriage and Family Therapy Matters podcast, where we connect Black families to Black therapists. Today's awesome guest is Mr. David Archer, who is a professional social worker, a marriage and family therapy, why am I stuttering? A marriage and family therapist, and he has a master's in social work. He is an award-winning anti-racist psychotherapist, a professional social worker, and a couple and family marriage therapist who practices EMDR therapy. He is also a trainer and PhD student at Concordia University with a SSHRC doctoral fellowship. And he's going to explain what that is in a little bit.
Hmm.
He is also a Black, Jamaican, African, Canadian father from Montreal. There's a subdivision, I guess, in Montreal, or I'll allow you to explain it because I don't want to butcher that word.
Oh, well, it's the indigenous, it's called Montreal by the colonizers, but the indigenous
Gotcha.
people originally called it Jogjaga.
Love it. Okay. Love it. Thank you for sharing. Over the past 17 years, Archer has treated people of diverse races, identities, and origins. He teaches and trains trauma therapists internationally. Archer specializes in PTSD, complex racial trauma, mindfulness, and clinical effectiveness. He has developed a therapeutic framework called Rhythm and Processing, also known as RAP, where his clients use music, videos, and natural environments to quickly and permanently heal traumatic memories. Archer is the author of Anti-Racist Psychotherapy and four other books. He is a keynote speaker and workshop provider for universities and professional organizations. By integrating anti-racism with neuroscientific theories, his purpose is to build solidarity, support oppressed people, and encourage revolutionary practitioners for the next generation. Before
Hmm.
we begin, I just want to say thank you for
Thank
that
you.
work. It is so underrepresented and underserved, and you're doing it. And I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
So you're very welcome. And now that I've introduced you, why don't you tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, just to add on to that, thank you so much, Connie,
Mhm.
for having this opportunity and for having the group and all of these things.
You're
So,
welcome.
I mean, I'm the father of two children. My daughter was born just in September. So, um,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. It just means that I'm constantly sleep deprived. I'm often
Oh,
thinking that, is the baby asleep? Is she gonna, do I need to feed this baby?
right.
What's going on? Why doesn't she speak English? Why is she yelling all the time? And
Right,
so the thing
right. Why
is,
don't you just tell me what you need? Yes.
and so I feel, and we were talking a bit about this, is that like as parents, what oftentimes will take place is you can't prepare for becoming a parent. And when you become a parent, like your idea of what it means to be a person is now linked with someone who is likely going to outlive you. And so you then become focused on the next generation. For
Correct.
me, as a psychotherapist and as a Black Jamaican African Canadian in Quebec, which is far away land in Canada,
Uh-huh.
um, I realized that I needed to make it so that other people who wanted to become therapists, specifically, there's a lot of men specifically who are not stepping up to the charge of becoming therapists or mental health professionals, in part because men are not told that they are healers. As a person who is Jamaican, it's also that we don't always talk about mental health. As a person who is Black, who's constantly under attack by white supremacy and security in this society, we're not told that our pain matters. And so by virtue of my existence, I intend to confront these these constraints that are placed in our society. By virtue of my existence, my goal is to eventually train my replacement and to make it so the next generation has an easier time than any of us ever did. So I am the first Black EMDR therapy trainer in my country, and I will by no means be the last.
Very
And my
cool.
goal by developing rhythm and processing strategies is to develop a way that not only the therapist, learns ways of being able to heal, but that the client is able to fully recognize their awesomeness, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, sexual identity, or culture. All people deserve to heal. And so this is the charge. This is the reason why I do this work, is to make it so that we all are able, regardless of your race or gender, all are able to reclaim this ability to heal and to witness healing and to revolutionize the way how we look at mental health.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Um, so many things that came out, but one thing I want to specify is for our audience. What is EMDR therapy?
So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This was developed by Dr. Francine Shapiro in about the 1980s. The basic idea is that um, the way how trauma is stored for many of us, it's stored in this way that's different from other memories in general. Like for example, if I were to ask you what happened like 2 weeks ago on a Monday, you might remember, or it might be a little blurry. You know, it's the sleep deprivation. I know for me, it's like, don't ask me what happened a few hours ago. But anyways,
Right, right,
but
right.
but the thing is that for the trauma survivor, if you ask them what happened 3 decades ago, they're
Mhm.
going to tell you what shirt the guy was wearing. They're going to tell you what time it said on the clock. They may also re-experience it. So you might start to see that their heart is beating. There's a lot of like muscle tension and frustration because it's almost as if the memory brings them back to the past and they experience the past in the present. And so we need to find ways of being able to make it so we can naturally and organically process these memories so that they're not dominating our lives. And so by integrating an attention towards the suffering that is there, by using the bilateral stimulation, the standard protocol of EMDR therapy, pairing these together, you can reinitialize and even reintegrate with the natural ability for people to heal and to recover. So EMDR therapists are working with eyes, working with tactile forms of bilaterals, working with auditory forms of bilaterals. And the goal is to make it so that we can reprocess the memories so we can put those memories back into the file cabinet where they're meant to be. So then
Amen.
instead of you accessing the memory and getting overwhelmed by all the files flying all over the place, you're able to take out the memory and read its contents and put it back, like the way how long-term memories are supposed to be stored. So we are using a way of healing that's not based on talking, not based on words or the content. It's more about the process of how these memories were stored and how the memories can end up becoming reconsolidated.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Another thing I love about what you said was that you're not going to be the last person doing this. So not only are you taking the responsibility, I think that's an appropriate word, the responsibility of leading, teaching this yourself, but you're training
Hmm.
other people to do that. So again, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Um, and you and I, who have a background in trauma, know what trauma is. Although, to be honest, I think the human part of just life can make you miss it, even when you're educated on it, especially when it's happened to you or someone that you care about. Because even as you said that, I was just thinking about a Black person in my life. Let me just be honest, a Black person in my life who I just realized that's exactly what they're doing. And
Hmm.
because I care about that person, I didn't even recognize it as trauma, but what you just that's what he's doing, you know? So what does that look like? What does that look like for the average? Just because we say things like our head hurts, or I don't with Black men, it could be anger, just I'm yelling, but I don't know why I'm yelling because I'm not gonna say it. I want to hear you say it, but are
Sure,
we're crying or we're depressed, we're not bathing, we're not our room is filthy, our house is filthy. Sorry.
sure.
So what is trauma?
Okay, well, it's a good question. I do want to just add another clarification to what you said is
Mhm.
even though we might be formally trained in what trauma is, I'm going to say a lot of your listeners might have some experience and might also have some quite an expansive or extended CV when it comes to their experiences of trauma. When I
Uh-huh.
look at trauma, I'm thinking about it in terms of the presence of suffering or the absence of compassion. So, the presence of suffering is easy for us to think about. It's that something bad has happened. The nervous system interprets this as dangerous or a threat to its continued existence. And it doesn't always need to be that full spectrum of it, but there's something about the event where the brain makes it registers it as if it was a danger, an intense, stressful experience. And just know the reason why I say it could be the absence of compassion is because even if it's not a car accident, even if it's not sexual assault or some violence, you being a young child waiting for the parent to come home, who never comes home, who never shows up, that sometimes can be even more devastating than the physical abuse, than the violence, the presence of
Yeah.
suffering that typically takes place in which our society doesn't like to talk about. I say our society doesn't like to talk about it because you mentioned men and you mentioned anger. As men, anger is permitted by us. Like anger is an emotion that you're allowed to have as a man. But just think about
And
our
good.
society, the way how the
Even.
media represents like what men go through. If men are to show their tears, our tears cannot move mountains, like how a white woman's tears is able to move mountains. Even a black woman's tears don't always have the same effect. But whether you're a black or a white man, anger is an accessible emotion. For a lot of women, anger is not an accessible emotion. And I bring in the racial element there to just talk about the social construction of how the world sees our emotions and how we see our own emotions. But largely, the interpretation of our emotions, the consequences of what takes place from our emotions in all of this is based on what I believe is trauma. And it's not only that the individual can be traumatized, I believe that our relationships can have a trauma history as well. Multiple betrayals, cheating in relationships is going to impact the way how you interact with your specific partner. I believe our communities can experience trauma as well when we're talking about chattel slavery, the MAFA, the fact that many of our ancestors were taken off of their indigenous land and brought here for the purpose of capitalism. These are things that are able to impact the way how we experience one another. And ultimately, I think that our society is in need of some severe trauma processing. There's something about our society that makes it so that we don't see harm done to certain people as actual harm. So our society says that genocide is permitted, provided that the person is from Palestine, or provided that the person is from Sudan, or that police violence is permitted as long as it's not happening too much to white people. And also, let's just not talk about the amount of police brutality towards white people. Let's make it a black thing so that we don't get everybody to understand that maybe we need to take a good look at our society and see that there's this common experience of suffering that's happening to all of us. So we are split up on the basis of race and gender and all of these imaginary concepts. And I say imaginary because, of course, you might see, well, as a black man, I have melanated appearance and all of these things, but the idea of race was constructed only for colonization. It was constructed to be able to then say these are people who are lesser than, so contributed to the destruction of the indigenous people or the attempted destruction because we still here. Like, it contributed to
Exactly.
like the thievery of stealing the black people from their lands, but again we still here. So when we're talking about trauma, we know that there's events in terms of etiology, but we know about the continued existence of the person, the continued survival, which is also an important part, which we might get to dissociation. But I just wanted to let people know, when I'm talking about race, when I'm talking about trauma, there's a function to these things. And once we understand what goals they serve, then we're able to consciously make changes. And yeah, that's my short answer.
That was a very thorough answer. Um, so David, as one of the things I thought you were going to address earlier, I'm just going to give you opportunity to now is the stigma. Because, clearly trauma is real. Everything you just mentioned is real. But I believe even when these things happen, like, I mean, this was a small case, but I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and it was a legal
Hmm.
issue with a black man. And clearly, I mean, the part of the reason why it got so much I mean, it wasn't like George Floyd or anything, so I don't even remember the person's name, but it still got a lot
Okay.
of attention. Um, and his response, he kind of minimized it himself. I don't know if it was, to me, it appeared that he was just uncomfortable admitting, because it was almost the angle of this is it was definitely an episode whereby he was wrongfully on the wrong side of the law and it got taken out of control. But it was I wish I had it with me to describe more, but it was
Okay.
psychologically it clearly he was psychologically affected by it. And it appeared that as a black man, he was so disturbed by it that he wasn't comfortable saying, "Yeah, man, I'm not only did you traumatize me, but you traumatized me from the whole world because my video is getting a lot of attention." So he just
Mhm.
kind of moved away from it. And I'm using that as an example, but the bigger picture here is that how do we work through the stigma of, I think, trauma's a lot, even even depression, anxiety, you know, you mentioned sexual assault and stuff like that. These are things that we're a little bit more, well, still that I think has a taboo, like in terms of admitting it. But,
Yep.
you know, you mentioned growing up, how many black boys waited for their dad to come home, and he never came.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
therefore, he has struggles with interpersonal relationships today. He would never say, "Oh, the reason why is because I've been traumatized." How do we reach that person, that mindset?
So the question is, how do we reach the people who don't believe that trauma is a reality?
Even if it's a reality that is not a reality for them. Or even if it is a reality, not
Okay. All
comfortable
right.
enough to address
All
it.
right. Let me try to address this. So just know that we're in a society that actively denies the presence of dissociation, but also trauma. Any of your listeners might know about Epstein, for example. I know that Americans probably know. I mean, the world knows about it.
Hmm.
And remember that the reason why I say there's a denial of trauma is because that was almost like everybody being vicariously traumatized by something that they did not choose to experience, and everything being revealed, and no one talks about it in that way. That it's almost like a crime against humanity, the fact that everybody is aware of the fact that there are people who have this level of power and have not experienced any accountability. And to some degree, our society likes that. To some degree, our society privileges and promotes those who have antisocial traits. Many managers of companies and all, like these are seen, it's almost seen as like a leadership trait if you're able to be dissociated from firing someone and stopping them from being able to pay their bills. Like that shows leadership, that you're able to be cold and calculating with individuals. So we promote them to some of the highest possible offices. And so we're experiencing the consequences of this. It makes me think about the book Assault on Truth. This is by Jeffrey Masson. And so he spoke a bit about Freud, because Sigmund Freud,
Hmm.
he wrote a paper talking about the etiology of hysteria. So he knew that trauma can cause these symptoms in individuals. But he also knew, maybe to some degree, that if he were able to say, well, what the patient is saying in terms of them saying that they are raped by their father, no, it's that they have penis envy. No, it's actually that it's an Oedipal complex. Like you can't necessarily believe what the person's saying at the outset, in part because, I mean, who's paying them to meet these little girls? Is probably rich people, people who were well-to-do. And because he sided with the people who are most privileged, that's why we know about Freud, because
Absolutely.
he didn't out them like as the abusers. That's why we know about him. So there's even something in our field about how like being able to have a big ego and being able to believe that we know it all, not asking for help when we need it. This is why we have these experiences of compassion fatigue amongst therapists and vicarious trauma in our society in general, is because these people who had big cultural impacts on our lexicon, because from Freud, we got the word ego, we got the word defense mechanism, we got all of these types of things. But he also gave us his blind spots. He also gave us this idea that we don't always need to engage with our emotions as a therapist. And also that we don't always need to engage with the fact that trauma is something that's a social experience. So we look at these as individual experiences. To get back to what you're talking about, it's bad enough we have difficulty acknowledging our own suffering, but we also then, maybe as a consequence of that, might deny the fact that suffering is happening to other people. I think there were a few of your American politicians who were talking about what's it called, like how empathy, I don't know if it might have been like Elon Musk or something like that, but just talking about how like empathy is like a mind virus or something, or that empathy is a problem and all. Like, just know that these are things that are said from people in the highest offices with the greatest like reach. And these are people who are saying that when a person dies, instead of like saying rest in peace, they're going to say, I'm glad the guy is dead. Like, that's for the president of your country. It's like, how is it that this is taking place? We then think about the origin of our countries, the origin with colonization, with violence, and then we understand we've had this problem all along. Trump is not the cause of these experiences, he's the symptom. He's the symptom of the sickness and the lack of healing of the trauma that is like not only in our society, but to some degree is embedded in our institutions. There's ways how even institutional betrayal, which is a theory that was popularized by Dr. Jennifer Fried. Like, there's ways how even us as students going through the institutions, I think there are some studies that talk about at the bachelor's level, master's level, PhD, the higher up you go, the more mental health stresses you get. So, how is it that our institutions are at the same time causing this degree of stress? How many students have not been able to graduate because they were placed under undue stresses, exploited, and all of these other terrible things? And that's why we know that trauma is more like our society, if it denies trauma, that's one thing. If it talks about trauma, it might speak about it in terms of the individual. But the difficulty is thinking about the fact that many of what fuels our society might be traumatic as well. So that's why we must not talk about the Epstein files. We must not talk about the fact that the US has been in a constant state of war since longer than I've been alive. Like, we're not supposed to talk about what happens to the veterans when they come back from the war. We make it an individual thing. Because if we make it a societal thing, and if we start to think, how do we improve the society? We become conscious of the sickness and we'll have no choice but to change it.
You just, oh my goodness. I mean, you bringing it. It's
This is what we
over.
do. This is
It's
what we're
over.
doing. This is
Yeah.
2026.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I love that you touched on Freud and how he brought things to our consciousness in terms of, his terminology, but he brought his blind spots,
He
and
did.
you've taken it amongst yourself with the EMDR world to address their blind spots. So can you talk with us a little bit about rap, and for those who don't remember, that's the rhythm and processing. And it is his approach to complex racial trauma. He uses music, video, and culture. So please tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So what I noticed is that, and it's not only me, but many people notice that there are cultural syndromes where it's like the way how depression is represented with, let's say, white Westerners is different from how it's represented for like Eastern Asian people. I noticed that for many members of the global majority, um, because in the West we buy into the idea of the what's it called, the mind-body split, this dualism, because of people like Descartes, who were like, I think, therefore I am. So the mind and the body are separate. And even like culturally, for those who are religious, typically the way how it's represented is that the mind is good because the mind is closer to the spirit, and the body is this baser thing that's not as it could never be clean and is always dirty and all these things. So again, these are just products of colonization, and it's just Europeans colonized themselves first and just spread out their colonization to other people. But just ask the Irish; they were some of the first victims of this colonization by people in the UK, in what we now call the UK. The basic idea is that I was noticing that we weren't focused as much on the body. And I feel that as a person who practiced meditation and as a person who I did a Vipassana meditation, wrote a book called Black Meditation, and I noticed that the body also has knowledge. In fact, the body also may be the opening or the gate towards what we would consider the divine. Because you need the body for these things. And also to move towards the idea that the body has consciousness and that this, when we are feeling okay with our bodies and feeling okay with our minds, there's no limit to what we're able to achieve. So, rhythm and processing is meant to address the knowledge gaps that I observed in many mainstream approaches. So, in 2020, at the height of the George Floyd protests, where we were all out there protesting and all of that, even the corporations are putting up the fancy hashtags and all of these things. I noticed that um, even though we were protesting, there was a desire, like part of the protest maybe was a lot of us in the Black community were realizing that enough is enough. We need help as well. Our trauma is real. Our pain matters. So there was an influx of people who were coming to meet with me because of the systemic barriers that prevent other Black men from being therapists. So I was inundated. There were so many people looking for requests, and I had no one to refer out to. So I was like, nah, there has to be a better way of being able to develop this. So it led me to start to focus on talking about racial trauma. In 2020, I was one of the first to present at the EMDRIA International Association of EMDR Therapists with a plenary speech with other people who were co-panelists as well. But it was the first time we spoke about racial trauma in a global context for psychotherapists. And I wrote an
Oh,
article in the Go With That magazine that was talking about the path towards an anti-racist psychotherapy. And I'm happy to say that now that article is part of the required readings for any new EMDR therapist who wants to be trained under EMDRIA, the International Association. So
love
we
it.
know that this is significant. We know that this is important, but we need to find ways that that we're not just trying to do the Black version of the EMDR, or we're not just doing the Black version of a CBT or a Black version of the DBT. And so that's why I developed rhythm and processing with identity at the core of it. So we're caring about identity at the core, caring about the body at the core, guided by Afrocentric principles. When I'm saying rhythm, it's talking about how there are multiple ways of healing that can take place and that they can emerge from the uniqueness of the client. When I'm talking about processing, it's based on the predictive processing framework and memory reconsolidation so that it's not just another fancy therapy or a fancy theory about what race and violence and terrible things are, is that we actually have a solution now. We actually can heal the body and the results are permanent. We are updating the internal model of the person's reality because it's like go big or go home. You know what I mean? It's like, let's not just make fancy theories. Let's make it so that the theory lends to something that's pragmatic so that it solves the problem permanently. And that's what rhythm and processing is about. And why did I use the word rap? Is because I've been an
That's what we
MC.
do.
Yeah, but I've been an MC for like most of my life. And
Oh,
like
you
the
do
thing
that
is,
too.
oh yeah, yeah,
You're a
yeah,
jack
yeah.
of all trades.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, before when, and again, like I was an artist first, I was a software engineer for 10 years, and then I got into this field. And that's why I think we
Wow.
need diverse perspectives. If you have diverse perspectives, you're going to get innovation in your field. But oftentimes, what happens is that our fields are pre-selecting. It's like many teachers want to see themselves reflected in their students. That's why there aren't many Black men who are in our field. And so that's why as an educator, as a person doing the PhD, my goal is to make it so that other Black men know that we can do this. Other Black women know that we can do this. other gay people know, trans people. Like I want all people as an anti-racist. I'm an intersectional anti-racist. So I'm trying to call people in and letting people know that therapy can benefit. All of us can benefit from trauma recovery. And using predictive processing, we are expanding what therapy can become so that even if you're not able to speak as eloquently, even if you think that you might have a neurodivergence, which prevents you from benefiting from our talk based therapies, well, guess what? You can heal with your cat in your lap. You can heal with hip hop music. You can heal with Bob Marley. This is what I did in the 2 months ago in a training workshop. That's how we did it as a group. And the fascinating thing is that because if there is this disparity or like there is like not enough of us being trained in your local community, guess what? You can use the rhythm and processing approach individually and with groups. So you can have upwards of 200 people in the same group, and we can heal a specific event for all of them, and they don't need to share what it is that actually transpired. So if there is any shame or any like unwillingness to share with the therapist the specific details, and also
Mhm.
even if the therapist needs to protect themselves, because we can't be exposed to endless narratives about suffering without bearing the cost of it, well, guess what? That's a solution for you. And so we are healing trauma in less time and leading to permanent results because we're developing our understanding. Other fields are talking to neuroscientists. Us as therapists are using some old, outdated models like triune brain, where it's completely laughable in the faces of the other neuroscientists. We're using these old theories. So that's why me and Thomas Zimmerman, who he's based in Cleveland, Ohio, it's like we're trying to just spread the idea that predictive processing is what therapists need to do so we can then understand that it doesn't need to be by chance where healing takes place. If you follow a specific model and have an understanding of how change takes place, it becomes the rule instead of the exception. So as my job, I'm helping people to heal watching images of beaches. And as a Canadian, if I look outside, there's no better place I'd like to be other than than in this cold. And also just know that if it's not just beaches, you're also able to use I did a consultation right before this meeting. We were able to use like the image that the consultee had about his grandmother and the importance of who his grandmother is as an ancestor. We're now able to bring the culture as a culturally responsive approach, regardless of a person's religion, regardless of their ethnicity, if we want to call it that, regardless of their language, all people can heal now. And so this is what rap is all about. We're always remixing as
Amazing.
MCs.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So I'm hearing what I heard that you mentioned beaches and you're having these retreats and stuff. Is it something that can be done online?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, so that's how you're doing it. I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay.
It's okay.
So make
Let me
sure, I want to
explain.
make sure that you leave the
I
link
could
in the
explain.
description so that
Sure.
people can can access this.
Sure. We have low cost and no cost options for therapists because I know
Okay.
that not all therapists are able to afford
Mhm.
quality training. So this is what I do. So if you can't afford it, there's a coupon code and you can learn it and you can teach it to your clients so they can help to feel better in their sessions. It was in
I
2022
want
in
to make clear,
Buffalo.
David, I'm also asking though for your clients as well. I love that you teach it, but for the people, the trauma people, the people experiencing trauma, can our Black
Sure.
community access you online as well?
No, no,
Okay,
because you're in a different country.
got you, got you.
You're in a different country and you have different laws than I do. And also
Okay,
because I'm fully booked. So this is why
that
I
part,
need to
right?
teach,
Okay,
yeah, I need to
that's why you
train
do
other
it.
therapists to do this because I'm getting some great results. And I want therapists to know they can also get these great results as well. So yeah, it would be great if you could, if you still want to benefit from a David Archer, you can
Right,
still just buy my books or just listen to the audiobook. There have been
got
some white therapists who they said, maybe I should owe you royalties because I'm using your Black meditation audiobook and I'm using it to close off my sessions because you have this great voice and you know you're talking about meditation. And yeah, it's perfectly fine. I didn't send them an invoice. I just let them know, yo, there's also two other audiobooks as well. And
Good.
so it's just for people to know that, like, even if you don't have access to a therapist, there are still things you can do to reduce your own stresses. And that's why my books explain from A to Z what to do. There's like handouts at the back, like, is what I give in my own trainings of like how to do the rap technique for your own self-care. But it is for therapists as well, just to know that we got to upgrade. Like, yo, we got to update this thing, man.
Oh, God,
And so,
yes.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think this is amazing. And as you know, we talked about this before the show, but I'm going to make sure that the other Black marriage and family therapists that, because we get so many inquiries about different ideas to expand their practices and different ways to treat people. So we're definitely going to make sure that they have this information. Um, for people who are looking for you in Canada, is there a website or something they can go to get more information, or do
Oh,
you recommend the books for them as well?
well, it's just to know that if you want more information, regardless of where you live, archertherapy.com, you're going to get all the information. There's also my
Fantastic.
socials and all of those things.
That is
But it's really to know that we in this moment, like the stresses that people are going through, we just need to come to grips with the fact that this is the end of the American empire. And that's why there's like more stress for a whole lot of other people. Because this is an unprecedented moment in our society, we need tools that are different from what is typically expected. And so rhythm and processing was developed so that we can help people to heal using their own culture. I just wanted to give a quick explanation of what it is that I do,
Mhm.
and just know that it doesn't matter about if the person doesn't believe they have race or any of that. You can still process racial trauma because there's a lot of people who are white passing. There's a lot of people who don't realize, as I said to Connie before, we all come from Africa anyways. So this is the importance of it. So that there was this woman, 80-year-old white woman. She had some difficulty because she had a phobia of driving a few years back. She got into a car accident, and anytime she enters a car, if her husband is driving, she has to put her hands over her eyes, unable to drive, panic attack, even thinking about driving. So we did it in person because she did meet me in my office,
That's
and we needed to find a way of disconfirming the anticipation, the prediction of stress that typically takes place. So what happens is before the person gets the anxiety symptom or the panic, there's a feeling that takes place. There's something that emerges. The brain then predicts, uh-oh, danger. If I'm feeling this, it means this, 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 this. What we needed to do then is to force a prediction error. The prediction error is a disconfirmation of that pattern. So at the moment when the client is feeling this terrible feeling, immediately she visualizes a vacuum cleaner and sucks it up, puts the stress in a container. Then what does she do? I mentioned that beach. She brings up this good image of the beach. While she's looking at the beach, I am then giving her an instruction that's going to allow her to increase the precision weighting on the present moment. When you do that, for example, I have my handy Afro pick. When I'm looking at my Afro pick, and you can do this at home if you have your pick, when you
okay.
look at it, you're going to notice that around everything else is blurring out. When you're focused on this, your brain is focused on the thing that you are attending to in the present moment.
Hmm.
So instead of the dominating feeling of the fear or the phobia, you're then giving prompts for the client to focus on something in the present. And that beach, I told you, we love beaches. Who doesn't love beaches? So
Who
the thing is
doesn't?
that we're making it so that she's able to focus on that. The brain has difficulty reconciling the prediction of stress with the fact that she's looking at this beautiful beach. The brain then needs to update the way how the trauma is stored. And so then when she thinks about driving, there's no longer the phobic response anymore because now we've been able to reconsolidate the memory. So now the
Mm.
memory is not in the same form that it previously was in, and now it's in a form that was able to be updated. So instead of her having a trauma history based on 2000 or 1996, she can have an experience that's based on 2026. And so I say this just so that people know that there's an unlimited amount of resources that all of us have access to. Even for this lady, we needed to find something that was strong enough that would make it so that she could even confront the traumatic memory. So we used an approach called resource integration. And resource integration is when we are using something that is responsive to her culture. So it could be a concept, an ancestral resource, a characteristic of the self, forces of nature. In this case, she chose the Beatles. She is a big fan of the Beatles. This is before my time. And she was remembering about the first time on her transistor radio, turning that on, cranking that up, and being able to dance as a teenager with the Beatles playing. That type of experience, I, as a therapist, could never think that that's important. Not because I have anything wrong. Like, I don't really have a strong opinion about the Beatles. I
About the
prefer a
Beatles.
lot of, yeah, I prefer 90s hip hop to be
Got you.
completely
Me
honest. Yeah, yeah,
too.
exactly. But the thing is, for her, that feeling, thinking about it, deepening the experience, the images, the colors, the sounds, the tastes, all of the forms, everything about that moment, the trauma doesn't even stand a chance next to that. When we were able to then switch on those positive emotions, the trauma is unable to continue because now it's challenged by something that is so somatically disconfirming that she's able to orient to the present instead of being locked in to the past. And so the combination of resource
Don't they have
integration,
to have their training? Because
yes,
I have a general idea of how EMDR works, but I'm not a certified EMDR therapist. Would they need to be certified first to then
no.
incorporate the rap, right?
No. The subject of my research is rhythm and processing, and this is what I'm describing. I'm describing the RAP technique, which can be used in person and virtual. I'm describing also resource integration, which is based highly off of EMDR therapy, but working in a context where we got people from all different races, identities, languages. I needed to find something that was more oriented in the person. And the subject of my research as a PhD is to write an autoethnographic account of what it means, me as a Black man, using this approach designed by a Black man to help people who are Black, who are white, who are trans, who are gay, and what that means. And in addition to the autoethnographic element, there's a knowledge dissemination component where I will be producing a hip hop album because we got to make it so that young people are able to know that therapy is real and that they can get into this field too. It's not enough for us to be speaking amongst just other therapists or other scientists. We need to find out how we can speak to the next generation who may not necessarily be so interested in like the cortical structures and like, you know what I mean? Like they may not be there yet. But I want people to just know, I want to kind of lead some breadcrumbs so that in the event that a person has no contact with me, they know that this healing is possible.
Perfect. This is really great. This is really great. I can see your passion. I can sense your passion. I know our viewers can. So I don't want to butcher the website, but I want you to say it again for our audience so that they can get more information. So what is that website again?
Yeah, the website is archertherapy.com. And what we're trying to do, and what I'm hoping we do, Connie, as well, is we got to make it so that therapists are able to uh, get self-care as well. Our work, we are literally tasked with holding space for suffering for other people. So we need approaches that are reducing the vicarious traumatization. And so on a monthly basis, I have therapy groups. I teach rhythm and processing 2-hour workshops. I teach consultation groups for therapists who want to practice it and also know how to work with complex PTSD, dissociation, racial trauma. And you get to feel a little bit more awesome afterwards. Because who wouldn't like to feel a little bit better and love the work that they're doing? And that is
Absolutely.
something that is not unique to me. I want to teach it to other people so they know they're able to do it as well. And even if you're not a therapist, The techniques are out there. You just get the cop the book. It's on Amazon. If you don't want to support billionaires who fly rocket ships, go to your local library. Just tell them Archer Therapy sent you. And you could just say the name of the book. And many libraries, once they know this is the book, they're able to find it. I'm trying as best as I can to get this book into black bookstores. I sent a lot of emails. I didn't get a lot of responses. So this is up to the community as well. I'd like for whoever's listening to this, if any of this resonates with you, see if you can get the book. Because if you take it out at your library, it's now there, and now someone else can get a book about anti-racism. Someone else can get a book about Black Mountain Fight for the Future. We didn't even talk about the science fiction novel. Someone else can
That's
get,
another one of
you know,
your works.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This
Oh,
is this is what I do.
that's
This
what
is
you
what I'm
do. I
doing.
see it. Okay, I love it. Well,
This is
why
what
don't
I'm
you
doing.
list the books really quickly so that people who are interested can have access to all of them? Or well, it'll be on your website, but I'm still just curious.
Sure. Give me one moment. I'm just gonna open up something that'll show
Okay.
it on the screen.
Okay,
But yeah,
perfect.
it's just, I'm not related to him, but my spiritual ancestor is Malcolm X. And I really look at it in terms of by any means necessary. We
I
have to
love
do
it.
this using every medium that is
That
available.
is available. Very
And
good.
so
Very
this
good.
is why I'm just going to share in the chat, or I'll share in the what's it called? Let me share on the screen. Give me a moment, please. Give me
Okay.
just a moment and I'll get this thing up. And let me put this up. And yeah, this is from a recent presentation that I did. So it's just to show like the different books that are there. So yeah, so it's just to know anti-racist psychotherapy. This is a neurobiological explanation of what racial trauma was. So again, in 2020, in the heat of it, in 2021, in the heat of all of this stuff, we needed to understand that racial trauma was a real thing,
Mhm.
not only because of the neurobiological consequences, but also because once it's real, you can do something about it. So if you want an understanding about what racial trauma is and also what EMDR therapy is, Anti-Racist Psychotherapy is the book. Black meditation, again, at the height of the COVID pandemic, a lot of Black people needed assistance. I couldn't reach everybody. So I wrote this book with 10 practices that are based on mindfulness and meditation so that even if you don't have access to a therapist, you can read the book and practice the techniques on your own.
Very
Racial
good.
trauma recovery. In Buffalo, New York in 2022, there was a white supremacist, insecure individual tried to kill as many black people as he could at a supermarket. And so what happened is there were white therapists and black therapists. They reached out to me because they knew about me from anti-racist psychotherapy. And they said, well, how do we do this? How do we do an anti-racist psychotherapy? And that's what led to the use of the RAP technique, the use of resource integration, integrating it with structural dissociation and other theories so that we had a comprehensive psychotherapy that is still experimental because I'm just a PhD student. But the thing is that it's still experimental and I'm
Just a
still using
PhD
it.
student.
Yeah, yeah. But we need you. We need people who did the doctor. I need
Yes,
you guys
great.
to help me to develop the evidence base. I can't do it by
Love it.
myself. So I'm saying that I'm at this level, but by the time you hear this, I might be a doctor, whatever. But we need black therapists to support this. We
We
need
support it.
us.
Absolutely. Well,
We need
we
us to
stand
develop the
behind
evidence
you.
base.
We stand behind you 110%. This is amazing. This is
Great.
the first of its kind that I know about. I mean, you said that you're the first
Yeah.
time you've done it, but I kind of follow these things and I can concur that this is not common. So
Yeah.
thank you for what you're doing and and to our community that's listening, each one teach one.
You got it.
One of my issues is I believe a lot of times we do tend to think I have mine and you have yours to get. And so what David is modeling is the importance of not only bringing up yourself and those around you, but teaching other people to do the same. And so any opportunity to encourage that, enhance that, I stand behind it 110%.
Thank
Um,
you.
yes. So with that note, David, we do have to wrap up. I know you have so much. We're probably going to have to discuss getting you
Sure.
back out here because
Sure.
I feel like this is only the tip of the iceberg with respect to all the wonderful things that you're doing. But Is there anything you want to leave our audience with, just to make sure that, the most important bullets for today, were addressed?
Yeah, you're black because you're beautiful. You're beautiful because you're black. Always keep in mind that we all have an unknown ancestor, and there is someone who's not in the history books and might be a common ancestor that all of us have in common with each other. And this is a person who did all that they could to care for a young child, and that young child eventually became one of your ancestors. That young child then created their descendants who are also your ancestors as well. So just remember that to be amazing or to find out like what you can do in the future, take some moments to meditate on the fact that there was someone who did all that they could to make it so that you're here today. So even in those moments where you might doubt your body or doubt the mind, always remember that you have an infinite creativity. And it's that that helped our ancestors survive the Maafa. It's that that allowed our ancestors to make the civil rights changes. It's that that allowed our ancestors to keep to have that spirit that is still within us. And our resistance, especially in these times of uncertainty, is to cultivate joy. It's to still cultivate a revolutionary blackness, to
Mhm.
still cultivate a sense that you can love yourself regardless of what anyone else is saying. And our goal is to keep healing. As you heal, you see things differently. And as you heal, it's the gift that keeps on giving. When you have compassion for yourself, other people can feel it. And yeah, that's what's up. And just
I
have
love
fun.
it. I love it.
We
I
can
love
have
it.
we
Well,
can have
David,
fun and heal.
yes, I love it. It's not, you definitely can have fun in this process. Well, listen,
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you.
I've learned a lot, so I can't imagine how much this of a difference this is going to make for our audience. Thank you. Thank you to the people who have tuned in. We appreciate your time. Please check out his resources. The links will be in the description. All right. This man is brilliant, and I share him with you today
Thank
with
you.
absolute pleasure. All right, everyone. Thanks for
Many
tuning
blessings.
in. All right. Peace and
Take care,
blessing.
everyone.
Dr. O.